So, welcome everyone to 4RGMeets 2026. Sounds like a futuristic novel to me, 2026. But anyways, so we're happy to have you all back here for the new year. I'd like to acknowledge that the 4RG is situated on traditional lands of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, an area covered by the Williams Treaties. We are all bound by these treaties, and as we move forward into the new year with our concerns, our hopes, our apprehensions concerning the climate and the world in general, it's useful to remember that Indigenous people of this land have a great deal of traditional knowledge when it comes to living sustainably and forging healthy relationships with our surroundings and with our wild relatives. I hope that we all tap into that understanding as we try to forge our futures in these uncertain times. I offer gratitude, miigwech, for the knowledge, both old and new, that will help us provide for future generations. So tonight, our guest speaker comes from in-house, specifically my house. She's right there.
Your house?
I think my name's on the lease. I don't know. Anyways, Beth McKinlay has been a member of the 4RG Board of Directors since 2020. Shortly thereafter, she and I started hosting these meetings as a response to being locked up during COVID. Beth came out of the University of Waterloo with joint honors in biology and environmental science. Sorry, I meant to say history and environmental science.
No, it was biology.
It was biology.
I corrected your script.
A minor in history. There was some history in there, I know it.
There was some history.
And followed up with a Bachelor of Education. She taught everything from science and social sciences to world religions, ethics, and even some Indigenous studies. She picked up a master's degree along the way and is now trained as a crisis responder for the crisis text line. Recently, she has begun offering forced bathing, aka Shinrin Yoku. She never stops learning. She digests books like I digest potato chips, and with such a diverse background, she can lend incredible insights into just about any conversation, except maybe sports.
And how to fix things.
And how to fix things, yes, true enough. But tonight, we'll be hearing from her crisis response side. And she provides some insights and strategies for building resilience in a time of not only climate crisis, but the omni-crisis. Please welcome my wife and mentor, Beth McKinlay.
Why, thank you. So when he asked for the introduction, I said like 4 things. That honey-do list didn't get any shorter. I'm sorry. We are joined tonight by Deborah Seabrook. Deborah is a climate-aware psychotherapist here in Peterborough and a music therapist. And she is faculty in the counseling psychology program of Yorkville University. She's here to participate in the group as well as to potentially offer some co-facilitation as we go. And Deborah has a special interest in climate. She offers climate-aware psychotherapy and is willing to support those who would like to have her support in processing some of these difficult emotions and just the challenges of all of this. So we will put her contact information into the chat, and you can access that if you'd like.
You want to get Deborah? You just want to say hello there for a second? Unmute yourself.
Hello for a second. I'm so grateful to be here. Genuinely, it's really lovely to be in your company. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So the first question just is, there we go. Why did you decide to join us tonight? Oh, Rich has got his hand up. Go ahead.
Hello, welcome to everybody. Thank you. Just FYI, I'm also a UW graduate, and for my coming in whenever I can, the 5 words are keep on top of environment.
Good.
Awareness and information from my knowledgeable colleagues and any new visitors. Thank you.
That's great to be with a community of like-minded, hearted people. Timely topic for discouraging times. To keep up to date, inspiration for sad gasps. The word gasp there really has a double meaning, doesn't it? Oh, Paul, to hear Beth, and you're curious about 4RG. To learn how to cope with my anger, concern for the environment and seeing what is happening locally. Love the work that 4RG does and like to see it in action. Thank you. To see your use of art and other ways of knowing. We're not going to do so much of that tonight, but we do have some ideas. Looking for ways to cope. I want my grandchildren to have the joy of life. I'm preparing to co-leaf on a course on this stuff and need to know what is available locally. That's great. Thank you. So in our promotional material for this evening, we are inviting you to take part in a practical conversation. And we'd like you to have the opportunity to share the perspectives, the habits, and the approaches that allow you to nurture and strengthen your resilience during these times of climate crisis, poly-crisis, all the crises, so that you can continue to show up in meaningful ways. And when I retired from teaching, I didn't really think about this till yesterday. I thought, why am I drawn to crises? I am a crisis responder and I work with the climate crisis. But it really comes together because the skills that I've learned from doing the crisis responder work really apply to how we look after ourselves in this climate crisis. And anytime we talk about the climate crisis, it can be distressing. And so before we move into the nuts and bolts of the meeting, I just want to point out some options that you can take for yourself during the meeting if it's starting to feel overwhelming. So, you're welcome to turn off your screen, get up and walk around, stretch, bend a little. Using speaker view can reduce the stimulus of your screen because you're only seeing one person instead of, I think we have 42 here now. You may know about the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, look 20 feet away for 20 seconds, so that will just help your eyes. You might like to do something with your hands. If you like to take notes or doodle or knit, sip warm tea, and do some deep breathing. And the crisis text line that I volunteer with is open 24/7. There's always someone there to talk to. You can text on your phone, 686868. It's anonymous. You can go online to connect.crisistextline.ca to speak confidentially with a trained crisis responder. And no issue is too big or too small. I've spoken with people, as you can imagine, in the depths of crisis, and I had a conversation with a kid in grade 8 who was really upset about failing his math test. So it doesn't matter what people are coming to us with, we're there to support people. So the other thing I'd like to do is do a grounding exercise with you. You may be familiar with this kind of an exercise, and it will fit into what I'll be talking about in a little while. So the first step is just take a moment. We're all here, we're settled, we've got the tech worked out, so I'm calming down. And just take a minute to just put your hand on your lower abdomen and breathe. Breathe into your lower abdomen so that your hand is pushed out. And just take a moment, if you like to shut your eyes, settle into your chair. And take 4 or 5 deep breaths. And pay attention to how your body feels at the beginning of this activity, and then we'll touch base afterwards as well. And I'd like to lead you through an exercise that is so simple, and it really helps us to hack our brain. When you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, to get out of our thoughts and to get into our body and into the place that we're, settled in and surrounded by. So I invite you to take a moment, if you'd like to try this, and just look around the room and in your mind label 5 things that you can see with a little bit of detail. So rather than just saying, I see a coffee cup, I could say, I see a coffee cup in the shape of a kitten with yellow fur. And I see some blue glasses sitting beside the sink. So I'll give you a minute just to look around your space and in your own mind, just label 5 things that you can see. And now I'd like you to take your attention to the sensation of touch. What are 4 things that you can feel? So it could be your slippers on your feet, the chair underneath you, the person beside you. And then let's move to 3 things that you can hear. Something maybe that's near or far away. Maybe there isn't 3 things, that's fine. And now, you may not be able to do 2 things that you can smell, but you might be able to. And maybe 1 thing that you can taste. This is such an incredible exercise. I first started using this at the dentist. And I would have my eyes closed. And I'll do this when I can't fall asleep at night. And I imagine myself somewhere that I've been. And I go through these questions. And I usually don't get past 3 things you can hear. It's really powerful. So, resilience. We're here to talk about resilience. So I wanted to take a minute and just make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of that word. It gets used a lot. So 4 key aspects. It's about adaptability. So when unexpected problems arise, you're able to be flexible and to adjust your path. It's about bouncing back. So when there are setbacks, grief, hard things in life, instead of just shutting down and succumbing to despair, you can bounce back. Using challenges as opportunities to learn, growth, finding new ways to do things, new strengths, emerging wiser. I've learned myself when I mess up to say, so what was the lesson there? Like, let's stop being critical about the mistake. Just figure out, what did you learn there? And the thing about resiliency is it's a skill. It's not a trait. It's a set of actions and thoughts that anyone can practice and improve upon, like riding a bike. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing the suggestions that you folks have about how you practice resiliency. So how does it look in action? You're facing your difficulties head on, even when you're in pain or stress. It's about reaching for support from your network, which is one reason I find 4 grandchildren so great, because we can reach out and talk to one another. It's about finding solutions and maintaining hope. Even sometimes it's hard, but there's a growth mindset, like we can figure this out. And it's about persevering. So, the next question, and let's do this in the chat again. On a bad day, how do you feel about the climate crisis and the progress being made? So the key here is, on a bad day, things are not going well. And you can answer just with 1 word. If I was to answer this, I would say hopeless.
Okay, so we've got despairing, angry, frustrated, overwhelmed, and despondent. Good and bad days are the same. This is reality. Mm-hmm. Angry, frustrated, climate progress is going backwards, we're screwed. Very discouraged about progress, discouraged, overwhelmed, discouraged. And and I think I would add depressed. Yeah. Cloudy, gloomy. Where's the peanut butter?
Where's the chocolate?
I ate some before we started this. I've been thinking about it for a long time, and it's just so part of who I am. Frustrated, discouraged, tired, anti-climate change, lies and deniers. Yeah.
Okay, you're my peeps.
Very sad. Yeah. Well, not surprising, but yeah, it's interesting to see them all right out there and put into words, people expressing it.
So then the next question, and this is the challenge, is to keep this short, but how does this impact you? So, for instance, if I'm feeling depressed, I just get lethargic. I don't answer my emails, as some of you on the board of directors might have noticed.
Ditto for me.
Yeah. So how does, on a bad day, these feelings impact, your behaviors, your choices, how you get through your day? So, I think for me, I would say avoidant. I just don't want to do hard things.
Yeah, right. So it stops me. Learn more and then take action. There's an optimist. Great. Less availability to take action. Withdrawal, demotivating. Existential health, and I think Blair says it's inspiring for him in some ways. Loss of energy, kind of vegging out. Stop doing everything. Contact friends. We're getting into how to fix it. Grief of what is being lost. No motivation. Irritated more easily. Another motivation, but I can do everything. I can't do everything. I must choose. Waffle being despair and discipline. Lack of motivation. Keep doing the work. Look for reasons to be more positive. Need to take a break.
Okay. So then the next question is very similar. On a good day. So now I'm talking about like a good day where you're just feeling like you got this, there's stuff happens and you just keep doing this, you just keep doing what you're doing. So on a good day, the first question, how do you feel about the climate crisis and the progress being made? And your answer, when I asked Scott these questions this afternoon, he gave me the same answers. My answers would have been different. So, yeah.
So energizes and creative juices start to flow, smiling and hopeful, optimistic, hopeful, inspired. See those two words a lot, inspired and hopeful. Positive as carbon emissions are flattening and renewables increasing. Stay with reality. I'm not sure if that was a negative or a positive one. Like to make a difference, energetic, inspiring, joy as an experience, needing redefining. Try to read positive news to make me feel better, make connections, reach out, frustrated because we have the tools to improve things but can't use them. I see the half full side of the glass, hopeful, able to notice people who are aligned with my values, and feel gratitude in that moment. Okay.
Wonderful. And then the next question is, like the last series, how does this impact you? And some of you've already alluded to that, energy, feeling energized, reading more, getting more involved. But if that's something that you would like to add here, if you haven't yet, how does the feelings that you're having on a good day impact you? That could be around climate action, but it could also just be generally.
It's easier to get going. I see that the crisis concept is not helpful. The concept of crisis is harmful and stops action. Being alive, you're getting ahead of me. Being alive and loving it, more capacity to access joy. Motivated to do something small. I want to spread the word and get things going. Focus on the beauty of the day. More determined to take small actions. Motivated to keep learning and communicating. That's similar to mine, which is more likely to work at the solutions, more likely to feel happier.
More likely to answer our emails.
More likely to answer our emails, that's right. Absolutely. All right. Okay.
Perfect. Okay. It's interesting as I was preparing for this conversation to learn, it's not surprising, climate activists, social justice activists are particularly susceptible to burnout. And I have some links in the chat. I don't know if they're there yet, but they will be.
Yep, I did.
Oh, you're awesome. Okay, so climate activists are particularly susceptible to burnout. These are just 4 reasons we could probably add to this list, but the lack of progress, the rate of progress. We talk a lot here at 4RG about how difficult it can be to engage other people, and our goal at 4RG is to engage and mobilize people for climate action, and if people don't even want to talk about it, that's a challenge. So then we feel like, we're a very small group trying to do a really big thing. And that can lead to us, having to put a lot of energy into it. We can be very committed, but then we can be very burned out, and the political hurdles. So last, I guess, April, May, June, July, August, I was thinking about our involvement here at 4RGrandchildren and this work that we do with 4RGmeets, and just thinking like, I don't know, like, is this what I really want to do with my time, with my energy? There's so many things that we can do. And happened to listen to a podcast by Christiana Figueres, and she is one of the architects of the Paris Accord, which was signed in 2014. And it was fascinating to hear her talk about just how burned out, overwhelmed, lethargic, depressed she was or has been in the last few years. Not surprising. And yet she said she was so committed to the idea that we can't all do everything, but each of us can do something, and not all the time. So I've got a link here to her podcast. And this conversation tonight presentation is being recorded, and it will be posted on the 4RGrandchildren website with this link. I highly recommend this. Yeah, she really turned me in a different direction from where I was going. And the thing about climate action is it's a grassroots movement. And we, folks, we're the grass. We need to stay watered. We need to be in a sunny and warm place where we won't be stepped on. We need some nutrients. And, you know, Margaret Mead, as many of you may know her well-known quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." But not if we're wearing ourselves down. You know, apparently 70% of visits to the doctor are related to stress. And so if the stress of dealing with this, you know, they call it a knotty problem, KNOTTY, because it's so complex, it's so widespread, it affects so many things, it makes so many other problems more complicated. It really is overwhelming. So to be working on something like this impacts our physical and mental health. So what I wanted to share are some insights that I've learned from volunteering as a crisis responder. And you know that saying that when you give, when you volunteer, you get back as much or more than you give. It's so true. And they're always looking for volunteers too, and their training is fabulous. So I'm a crisis responder. I volunteer with the crisis text line. I had fabulous training. The service is provided by Kids Help Phone, but crisis text line is a subset of that, and we speak with adults and youth, and we offer short-term support. And I repeated adults and youth because sometimes people just think it's for kids. So we use an online platform. So when I'm on a shift, I'm on my computer. Texters could be on their phone, their tablets. You can even access the crisis text line through your laptop. As I said, we offer short-term support. Most conversations are under an hour. And then we offer connections and resources for longer-term support and next steps. I'm supported by a supervisor on every single shift, and they help me whenever I need it. And as a new crisis responder, I didn't reach out until I realized, no, it doesn't matter. We're there to help the texters. So I ask my supervisor anytime a situation comes up that doesn't sort of fit, you know, the training. And then offline, I have a crisis text line coach who will help me grow my skills. And so if I summarized in, you know, one phrase what it is we try to do, we try to help the texter move from a place of distress and overwhelm to a cool calm. So we all know that, you know, when we're distressed, if we get in a fight with someone, if we're reading an email, reading the news, our brains go offline. The blood actually leaves the prefrontal cortex, which is where we make good decisions and think rationally and logically and can find solutions. So the blood's actually leaving this part of our brain, and it's going to our heart and our heartbeats. It's going to our muscles. It's a fight or flight response. It's not a good time to send an email when you're mad. You need to give yourself and your brain and your body some time to calm down from this. And it's also really worth mentioning that some people live in a constant state of stress to varying degrees. And there's lots of things we can do to support ourselves and each other, friends, family, people we volunteer with. So what we do on a crisis response shift is we risk assess each texter. We help them to create a safety plan. If necessary, our supervisors will support us. And because the texter's not in their prefrontal cortex, not in their thinking brain, they often forget that they actually have the strengths and the abilities and the coping strategies. And so our job is to listen to them, to help them come to that calmer place, and then to ask them, like, what usually helps you when you feel like this. And they remember their strengths. They remember, oh yeah, I could talk to this person. The other thing that we do is we offer resources. If you're interested in seeing some of their content, it's amazing for adults and kids. They have resources online under, I think it's Kids Help Phone, and also suggestions for more support in their community. So our goal is to help the texter move from a place of distress and overwhelm to a cool calm. It can take 20, 25, 30 minutes for that initial surge of adrenaline to fade. I will use that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique with texters if they're really distressed. Deep breathing. We did a little session of deep breathing. If you find yourself distressed, go for a walk, go eat some ice cream, talk to someone. All those things will help you to feel calmer and faster. So, as I said, some of the things that I've learned as a crisis responder are really applicable to what we're doing. And this is probably the most important one. That often we find ourselves in life in a situation that we can't control, that we can't manage, and it's distressful. But we can still make choices about how we're going to get through it and how we can support each other. So I mentioned that already. When I was 17, my mother, my brother's here, John, you probably read this too. My mother gave me this book, Man's Search for Meaning, and written in, 1950, where man meant everybody. Everything can be taken from a man, from a person, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. So Viktor Frankl survived the Holocaust. He had everything taken away from him and came out and reflected on the choices that he made and that other people made and how that allowed them to keep going forward. So the groundwork, the foundation of everything that we do as a crisis responder, and I've learned to do this with my friends, and people love this, is active and empathetic listening. So not just like waiting till the person finishes talking to speak, but actually when they tell you something, you stop and you pause and you say, oh, I can see how excited you are about that, or I can see that's really upsetting, or that must have felt, I can understand that you would be really worried when blah, blah, blah. You summarize what they said. This stuff is magic. Like, it's incredible. 85% of our texters tell us that this is what gets them out of a crisis, that it's this that gets them out of the fight or flight and into that calmer place. So it helps you to build a deep connection, which we need that. Humans need to belong. We use techniques like non-judgmental presence. We mirror their body language. We ask open-ended questions. We validate emotions. And this is something we can all do for each other as we're trying to cope with, what's going on. And I was saying to Scott the other day, everyone I run into these days stops for a moment and says, how are you doing? Like, how are you managing all this? And then the next thing is they say, oh, have you read this book? Or, yeah, I remember my grandma used to say, whatever. Or, musicians are talking about music, and hikers are talking about where they're hiking. And it's so beautiful to watch this, the way people are rising up to support each other. I wanted to share with you something that really helped me through the pandemic. Oh, equally. I spell equally with 3 L's. So Julian of Norwich lived 1343 to 1416 in Europe during the Black Plague, when 50% of Europeans died. And in the midst of all that, she had the ability to say, be sure that you hold the grief and the joy equally in both hands. And I was flabbergasted. I mean, I knew how to worry. I was really good at that. But like making space to like seek out joy in the middle of all of the uncertainty was really new to me. But it really was life-changing. You know, I'll get to the middle of the afternoon and think, how has there been any joy in my day yet? You know, like how much time did I spend with the negative news and all the things, you know, what do I need to do to bring joy into my day? And so I can't say enough about this perspective. And I'm hoping in a couple minutes I'll wrap this up, and I want to hear what you folks, what kinds of sayings you have in your head that help you to keep going on. And to be fair, you know, we're holding the tension between the grief and the joy. We're not turning away from the grief. It's not what they call spiritual bypassing, where you're just like ignoring it. You're still fully aware of how hard things are, but you're giving yourself a break. You're paying attention to your body. You know, what is it telling you? Are you really tense? Are you uptight? Is your heart racing? Your body more than likely is telling you to step back. So pay attention to that. Look after your body. Give yourself permission to step back and make room for the joy. And I just have a couple more things to say here before I wrap this up. There's this concept of adaptive engagement that's also been really helpful to me. And I was talking to someone in 4RG the other day, and she was saying, oh, like I haven't been involved and I feel really guilty. And I said, no, like you do what you can when you can. Like step back when you need to. Like we probably step back from May till October for the most part, except some emails that we need to answer. And engage in a way that is sustainable for you. You know, do the things that you enjoy. And there's so many things that need to be done. You know, we have teachers, we have artists, we have community workers, we have so many people in For Our Grandchildren doing so many different things. Climate work requires persistence, not intensity. And so by doing these things that you enjoy, by stepping back when you need to, you'll, you know, more than likely be able to stay with it longer. But sometimes you need to step back, and that's okay. If you know Michael Moore, the filmmaker, he has an analogy about this. And he said sometimes in band or choir, he's talking about like high school band or choir, music requires players or singers to hold a note longer than they can actually hold a note. In those cases, in high school, we were taught to mindfully stagger when we took a breath so that the sound appeared uninterrupted. Everyone got to breathe, and the music stayed strong and vibrant. So, take a breath. The rest of the chorus will sing. The rest of the band will play. Rejoin when you can so others can breathe. And together we can sustain a very long, beautiful song for a very, very long time. You don't have to do it all, but you must add your voice to the song when you can. So I wanted to take a minute and talk about a psychological concept that was taught by a guy called Dan Siegel. He's a psychiatrist, and he says he wanted to help people understand how they could be in a state where they could function well. And so he calls this place where we're capable, we're thinking clearly, we're calm, we're engaged. He calls this the window of tolerance. And it's surrounded by two other states. And you folks, in your answers to some of the questions, you totally named these. Hyperarousal is when something stressful is causing you to be panicky, irritable, moving around, angry, overwhelmed. You're in a fight or flight response. And hypoarousal is when you just feel numb and depressed. maybe ashamed, maybe you should be doing more. You might be feeling, very passive, lethargic, withdrawn, or shut down. So when we're in our window of tolerance, we have an ability for better relationship interactions. Emotionally regulated means that we're in control or aware of our emotions. We are connected to others, to the earth. We can handle stress. We make good decisions. We're calm and grounded. This is kind of busy. So what I wanted to point out here is those two orange boxes. So if you're in the window of tolerance and something stressful happens, some of us move upwards towards hyperarousal, where there's this time where we're dysregulated. We're not totally into fight or flight yet, but we're feeling frustrated. We're feeling agitated. We're getting urges to explode, to isolate. We're uncomfortable, but we're still in control of ourselves. And then on the other side of that window of tolerance is dysregulation. So that's when you start to notice that you're feeling lethargic, demotivated, you're getting close to shutting down or zoning out, but you're not there completely, but you can feel those uncomfortable feelings. And so the work I do as a crisis responder is, first of all, helping, texters understand where they are, and then how they can get back into that window of tolerance. And we all have our own, individual size of window of tolerance. It's dependent on these three issues here, or these three factors, I should say. So past trauma can be big or, smaller, but we've all had trauma. It will narrow our window. It can make us more easily overwhelmed. Stresses in life, demands, physical health, sleep, diet can make your window of tolerance smaller or bigger. And then positive experiences. So hold the joy and the grief equally. Have positive experiences, because that will build your resiliency and will help you expand that window. So depending on what's happening on any given day, we can find ourselves in one or more of these zones. They're normal responses to stress. Being outside of that window of tolerance can be a perfectly reasonable response to what's happening around us today. I'm not suggesting that you should be wandering through life listening to the news thinking, oh yeah, well, I'm calm, I'm in control, that's fine. The issue here is how we deal with what we're feeling when we're dysregulated. So for instance, you read something on the news, let's say an old growth trees are being cut down near Peterborough. And immediately you're angry, your breathing might increase, you're irritable, you might have racing thoughts, and you might think, okay, what am I going to do? I have to do something. That tree's been around for hundreds of years, longer than us. It's going to be gone long after, or could be there long after we're gone. What am I going to do? If in that state of fight or flight, of hyperarousal, I say to Scott, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm going to go chain myself to that tree. They're not cutting that tree down. And then Scott's like, yeah, wait a minute, but aren't you supposed to you got some responsibilities. You were going to pick up the neighbor's kids at school. And do you have any food? You can't stay chained to a tree for 6 hours. You really like being comfortable. So it's recognizing I'm angry and I'm feeling a fight or flight response, but it's moving back into my window of tolerance so I can say, okay, what is mine to do? What can I do here? I'm not the one who's going to be chaining herself to a tree, but I might be the one who's writing letters. Oh, I might be the one who's hosting 4RGMeets because I can do that. So this is a summary. You can find loads of stuff on the internet about how we feel and how it impacts our work. I have a quote here by Thomas Merton, which is partly for Paul. He and I have connected over Thomas Merton, who was a Catholic who went to the East and became very embedded in contemplative meditative practices and thinking about how do we look after ourselves spiritually and emotionally so that we can do the work in the world that we want, to make the world that we want. And he says, he said, he's not alive anymore, there is a pervasive form of modern violence to which the idealist most easily succumbs: activism and overwork. The rush and pressure of modern life are a form, perhaps the most common form, of its innate violence. And he's talking about modern life in the 60s. To allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone in everything, is to succumb to violence. The frenzy of the activist neutralizes his or her work. It destroys the fruitfulness of his or her work because it kills the root of inner wisdom, which makes the work fruitful. So we're going to pass things over to you in a moment, but first of all, in the chat, I wanted to give you a moment to think about that window of tolerance idea. And so the question is it easy for you to recognize when you are outside your window of tolerance? And I'll just go back to that. Here we go. To that image. So there's window of tolerance. Do you find it easy to recognize when you're dysregulated? So you're feeling more lethargic, getting close to shutting down, or getting agitated? So if you could just write yes or no in the chat. Do you find it easy to notice in the moment when these feelings are strong and powerful?
More yeses than no's so far. Guy says yes if he stops for a second. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think I said no because I tend to react quickly, but if I can stop for a second first, I mean, that's what counting to 10 is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like our grandma knew. Our grandmothers knew. They didn't have the same words, but this is what they told us.
Yeah.
Stop and smell the roses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so this is sort of the heart of what I would really like to do with you folks and open this up to you. Can you share with us, what is it that helps you recognize when you're outside your window of tolerance? That's the first question. So Guy answered that already. He said just slowing down. And then he recognizes, oh, yeah, I'm outside of that calm place where I make good choices, make good decisions, am connected to other people.
I tend to break things when I'm outside, listening to the body, to tell them what to do. So, yeah. So how do you get back into that?
Well, how do they recognize it?
How do they recognize it? Sorry,
that's the next one. Your body tells you, yeah, that's so important. Health declines, absolutely. Ground yourself, yeah, breathing in and breathing out. Yeah, recognizing you're anxious or angry. Getting discouraged, I notice my feelings. When I get too extreme, yeah, that's so true. When I feel irritated and then tired, fed up with everyone and everything, yeah, you're just not acting the way you normally do. You notice you're postponing things, that's good. If you're talking to someone you trust, when you're upset or you're short, yeah, you're not sleeping well for sure.
Procrastinators meet their peak.
Oh, Linda, you isolate yourself. Yeah, me too. Breathing exercises. Stop and think about how. Okay, so now I think we're starting to move into the next question. So then the next part is, what helps you return to your window of tolerance? So here we are. A bunch of us showed up on a Tuesday night to talk about resilience. Can you share with us then the ideas, the habits, the perspectives, the approaches? And I'd like to spend a good amount of time here, so you don't have to. Well, actually, we could put some comments in, but I think it would be nice to hear people talk as well.
Yeah, well, Marilyn's got a nice summary here of what she does. It's to cope. I think of Thich Nhat Hanh. There's absolutely nothing wrong with. This is going off my screen. Hang on. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this moment. Nothing to change, nothing to improve. Just relax. Do nothing. I stay in the moment. Also ride my bike, cross country ski, paddle, and eat chocolate.
Yes.
Definitely, chocolate solves everything, but the healthier response is to always get outside and exercise, which I see other people have done. And then I do have a book of inspirational quotes that I, keep handy, and they can give me courage to move on and keep going, be persistent. But yeah, you have to take a break from this work every now and then, don't you? Focus on happy things.
Yeah. Yeah, and turning to a book, I have a couple of books, and it's like, okay, if I'm feeling this way, I'm going to read that. And if I'm feeling this way, I know there'll be something in this book that will help me.
Yeah.
Who else has got a method that they use to bring themselves from that kind of hot place to a cool place?
John, my brother is here. Are you still here, John?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear me, Beth?
I can.
Okay, so definitely the volunteer ESL teaching is good because it gets you out of yourself and your problems and whatever concerns you have. Because when you're dealing with a class of people, it's you're all there for them. So therefore, it's an escape. Now that's a social escape, and a more private escape would be practicing music, 100%, in order to just do something that I want to do, and to hell with the world, I'm going to do my own thing. So you have to have a way of going out and a way of staying in that accomplishes that same goal of achieving calmness.
Yeah, I really like that. A way of going out and a way of staying in. And when you're with your students in the ESL class, it's face to face and you're engaged with them, and there's
Oh
so
yeah,
much that you get back from that, isn't there?
yeah, you're all on. Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. That's great.
Who else has something to share?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Ruth.
There you are.
I have short-term and long-term coping mechanisms. Short-term ones are real mental discipline perspective. My life is good. I live in peace. I'm surrounded by beauty. I'm fortunate. The gratitude piece is really the gratitude in both short-term and long-term really helps me a lot. And then just the long term, just making sure that I get outside a lot. I really liked what that other speaker said. And in both short and long term exercise, just stay physically active, right? I get a lot of positive mental and physical health from exercising regularly.
Yeah. I remember my doctor saying to me, if you could put all the benefits of exercise into a pill, it would be the best selling pill because it's so effective. Yeah. Thank you, Ruth.
Paul wanted to say something.
Yeah, hi. A few things. I read something spiritual and big picture, just to give me some perspective beyond, this important, but quite frankly, this small little planet in the context of the universe. And Thomas Merton's a good one. Music, either playing it or taking it in. Meditation, doing something nice for someone else who really needs it, tends to take my mind off my stressing about these things that are hard to change. And another one is just do some small task that I know I can do, that I know I can finish.
Yeah. 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 We find that now that we're both retired and in the house, you sometimes listen to the news in the morning and then start some chore and then it like falls apart and then the next one falls apart and it's like, oh, this is all too much. So that's really good advice. Find something that's going to work.
Judith, what's your method?
Well, I mean, like everybody, I've got lots of methods. I do sit every morning, which helps, and then getting out and walking almost daily, that helps. But if I know something's going to put me over the top, like I know one thing that will do it every time, that's the CRA. I have
Oh
to
my
deal
God.
with the CRA, my blood pressure goes up right away. So I pick to do though. Fortunately, I can mostly pick to deal with them when I have time. on a day where I don't have a lot of other things and I can just know that I'm going to have time to at least make a dent in whatever it is I'm dealing with. And then, I don't do it under time pressure
Yeah.
or put myself in that position of time pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're very intentional about it, recognizing what you have the capacity for and what you don't have the capacity for, like in your day.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I learned about this window of tolerance, it's not like I didn't know. Let's just say sometimes I get places a little bit late and I have a hard time finishing a task before I do, I go to get ready. And since learning about this, I think, oh, I'm going to be late if I don't get up and do the things I need to do to get ready to go. I will throw myself out of my window of tolerance and it's not worth it. So just go.
Well, before we go much further, I just want to take a moment to say thank you, Beth, for that. I feel better, and I know my response when I get outside my window of tolerance is to shut down, and the world starts raging. I either go birding or find a Netflix series to binge. And if I try to do something useful while I'm outside that window, it invariably falls apart and I end up feeling even worse, or making things worse. And but I was very impressed by how simple this whole window of tolerance model is. You're either in it or you're outside of it, and recognizing where that border is a big part of the battle. But the difficulty is finding your way back inside, I think, and that's what we've just been discussing. So I like the advice of identifying strategies when you're of sound mind and body, and practicing those to a certain extent, because once you shut down or on a rage, you don't really have the capacity on your own to build a strategy, and so kind of having strategies in place beforehand is like laying out a trail of breadcrumbs that you can follow back through the window. The other thing that you mentioned that was really important, I thought, was the acknowledging other people's experiences and emotions when they're distressed. We talk about things that we can do, but a big part of it is making sure there's somebody else there to help you out. And so, yeah, just acknowledging people, hearing them. I mean, that's half. That takes care of a big part of people's problems if they've got somebody that's just listening to them, and that can be very good. So
I have a couple things to do before we finish.
Okay.
So
It's
about
thanks again, and let me finish my thank you.
Sorry, dear.
So thanks again for providing, as always, this framework, pun intended, for managing our discontent.
I just don't want to forget to read something that was sent to us from a young volunteer here for our grandchildren. Isaac Williams has been helping us out with some of the public events that we've been doing. And so he answered the question of what helps him to stay resilient. But he said in the last half of this, he said, how do we keep ourselves from checking out and plugging our ears? How can we sustain and strengthen our resiliency so that we can sustain our ongoing fight for climate justice? To myself and many others I have met invested in the future of our planet, we must draw upon community and collective solidarity. I recall my experience helping out with our booth at the Pride Festival in September, where I was able to connect and have conversations with others who are passionate about social issues and the climate. This sense of collective solidarity left me feeling more motivated and a little less alone and isolated in the fight for climate action. Building real connections with others in our communities and creating collective solidarity is not only necessary to making real progress in our pursuit of climate justice, but also to creating sources of resilience and mutual support that can help us to keep our heads above water amidst sobering roadblocks, headlines, and projections. And another young member of For Our Grandchildren approached me last week and said, I just want to sit down and talk to people. Like, it's great that we're doing this online tonight. She couldn't be here, but she said, like, can we just go somewhere? Like, just show up at a cafe once in a while? And so we're going to do it this Thursday at 4 p.m. She and I and Scott will be going to Dreams of Beans and connecting with one another.
Rich.
Beth and Scott, just keep doing what you're doing. Pace yourself. You have no idea of how much it helps us. Everyone here encourages us, motivates us. For when I can connect, I take a deep breath of relief. We are moving forward regardless in many different ways. Thank you to the both of you for another great start for another great year. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much, Rich.
I really appreciate that.
There's an interesting comment I saw earlier on tonight. It's from, I don't know if you want to speak to it or whether you're still here, but Alison Nielsen. And she says that I see that the crisis concept is not helpful. The concept of crisis is harmful and stops action. And I thought that was an interesting thing to say because we've gotten used to saying, the crisis in order to underline that we are in a crisis. But how many people does it turn away when you keep? I mean, you're part of the rage baiting now. So it's a crisis. I mean, it is, but should we keep saying it? I don't know. Allison, are you still here? And do you have more thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't have to say too much, but I think that's it. It's like there's these sayings about, we don't want to run so fast that we're not with people or that, we're too busy. I think many people have said some of the same things that just if we remind ourselves that that thinking of it as a crisis is a problem, not ignoring how important it is, but everything can be a crisis, and that's just not it's out of that zone you've talked about. So anyway,
I think that's really important because as soon as you call it a crisis, it seems unsurmountable.
And you've already triggered a few people.
Yeah. And I know that in For Our Grandchildren, recently there's been some really visually gorgeous flyers that have been put together, and the focus has really turned to, what can we do? Like, we're going to save, there's that little little meme, what if we got it all wrong and we do climate action and we get health and we get, a vibrant economy and we have biodiversity and all the things. And so what Al and Linda Slavin, they've been working on this, and other people as well, is just highlighting that, there's a lot that we can do. Let's focus on what's manageable and what we can actually do as a way forward.
And you started about talking about Indigenous wisdom, and there's these concepts of radical hope and Plenty Coups, Indigenous leader, when his people's I forget all the details, but it was 100 years ago, his people were being devastated and they reached for hope. And, there are good examples of people that have gone through apocalyptic situations and they kept hope and they're still here, and that's where we, I think, can really learn from.
Yeah, this is really hard. And we lived, John, my brother who's here, we talk about this all the time. We've lived through a time in history like no other, hot running water in the kitchen and, a stove and, all the things. And our grandparents lived through world wars and holocausts and the Depression, that's just going back like 100 years or more. Yeah, we can do hard things too.
So we're just responding to a question in the text there about info for.
Deborah.
I just put my contact info in the chat again. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Deborah.
Excellent.
Yes, and also thank you so much, Deborah. So Deborah helped me prepare for this as well. Just wanting to situate this because it's, I think we have to be really responsible about where we bring up some of these really difficult ideas. And so I'm really grateful, Deborah, that I was able to talk through these ideas with you and get your feedback with your professional perspective. Thank you.
And I wanted to say, Deborah, I'm impressed that I saw a couple of people quoting from Joanna Macy, and it is really a good source for hope finding hope. And she and Rebecca Solnit, who I had this book here, but both have lots of good things to say about hope. And we were just talking a minute ago about it, calling it a crisis and that turning people off. And we have constant debate within our organization about what will get people motivated. Is it showing them stranded polar bears, or is it showing them hope? And we've been turning towards hope, and I think we've settled on a formula of our news that we present to people is about 1/3 outrageous activities to get them angry, but you don't stay angry for long. So we've got about 2/3 of them are stories that say, here's what other people are doing and reasons you can try and do the same thing, and these things that other people are doing are working. So anyway, it's very difficult to stay away from the word crisis, and it's very difficult to find hope in times like this. But the books, Joanna Macy or Rebecca Solnit, will help you find them.
Emma Chaudron is also fabulous.
Yeah.
What is it? Hard Advice for Difficult Times. When Things Fall Apart. She's really grounded. She's quite amazing. I want to just give a shout out to Guy. He did a talk on Sunday morning at the Unitarian Fellowship in Peterborough about why he became a climate activist. And that was recorded and it would be available, wouldn't it, Guy? Maybe I'll actually, if you don't mind, I can put it in our resource link when we post the video. So it's, I think you talked for like 15 minutes, maybe 10 or 15 minutes about your journey to become a climate activist and what sustained you.
Yeah, and actually that's a really good point. I'm sitting here up on the wall beside me is a calendar that my younger sister made in 1998, and I just keep it there because every page has about 50 pictures of our family at different stages of their life.
And you're doing the work on everyone's behalf. Well, not everyone's, but you do your work on the behalf of, motivated by your care and love of your family, from what I see.
What was that comment
Oh,
that
there's
just came up?
Okay, so I reached out to Trent University, to a few professors, to let them know that we were doing this and invite their students. So Rebecca Anderson says, I just wanted to say that there's a few of us here from an environmental science class at Trent, and this was really great to be a part of. It's so nice to hear people from different perspectives and points in life that care and are still trying. You guys are awesome. Keep going. Thank you.